Hi everyone, I'm Crina Okumus and this is the podcast. This is an interview series with known personalities from all over the world by exploring questions about life and learning how these people are dealing with pain, as we are all do, pressure and challenges in their private and professional life. I really hope you take a nugget of wisdom or two and you are improving your own life for better. Today on the podcast, I'm speaking with Andrea Ochoa. Andrea, a former New Yorker, born and raised in Miami with Colombian roots. She's a holistic artist and wellness coach, supporting people to embrace their inner superpowers and transform their lives. This is what I love the most, from ordinary to extraordinary. What is very interesting about her career is that after 5 years of working as a global product manager for Calvin Klein and Carolina Herrera, and another 5 working for L'Oreal and Victoria's Secret, her values totally changed. With this shift, her outer world no longer aligned with her inner world, and her transformation began. Let's hear more about her journey here on the podcast.
I am so honored and grateful to be here and share this time with you to share my journey. And so my background began, I studied advertising and public relations. I went to UCF in Florida. I'm from Miami with Colombian parents. And originally I had started studying pre-med for 3 years because I was
Really?
Yeah.
Because I didn't know. Wow.
Yeah. And the funny thing with that is it's not that I really liked it, but I was just a dedicated student. And the one class that I loved so much was nutrition. And I wanted to be a nutritionist. And at the time, nutrition was not big at all. So I remember telling my mom, oh my God, I found it. I want to be a nutritionist. And she was like, no, that doesn't make money. And I was the type of person that was I always wanted to be the good girl and listen to what my mom said. So I kind of dropped that. And it's just really interesting that now I'm back in that field. So it's kind of coming all full circle. And then something happened where I was rethinking my future and I changed my major to do something more creative. And so I ended up getting a degree in advertising and public relations. But I only studied 1 year, so I didn't really have any internships. I didn't know what I wanted to do with that. And so then I thought, okay, I have to study something else to understand what exactly I want to do in advertising and public relations. So that year I went to New York on my last senior year trip, and I fell in love with New York. Yeah, I was like, oh my God, I have to move here.
I don't love New York.
Yeah, right. And I was like, I don't know how I'm going to get here, but I'm going to find a way. So then I started researching programs, and I found Parsons because I was really into fashion. And I also used to love Project Runway. I don't know if you've ever seen that show.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, you know how they have the Parsons.
How old you were during this time when you moved?
I was
really alone
about 20 years old.
Wow, very young.
I was 20. Yeah. And so I found Parsons, and they had this post-bachelor program where you didn't need to take the GRE. All you had to do is have a portfolio and write an essay. So it's the only program I applied to. I dedicated my entire senior year to getting into Parsons. And yeah, I had no idea if I was going to get it or not, but I did. And That's cool. Then I moved to New York, and I started, and it was amazing. It was a dream. My mom and family, like my dad was always very supportive of this radical change where I went from wanting to be a doctor to pursuing something in fashion. And my mom at the time didn't quite understand what a career in fashion meant. So, and I think she also thought I was going to move back home. So for her, it was like, no, you're leaving to New York. So I still went ahead and did it. I moved to New York with 2 suitcases. I didn't even have an apartment yet. I just knew that I was going to school. Like, that's it. And then things started to unfold, and I ended up finding a place, and I ended up starting school, and it was amazing. And I studied for 1.5 years. I graduated from Parsons, and luckily to Parsons, it was the way that I got really, really amazing internships. And my first internship was at Tommy Hilfiger doing entertainment public relations. I had no idea what that meant. And it was during Fashion Week. And I
was That's a good start.
It was a great start. So
but I think it's if just a second, I think it's happened all the time when you go out of your comfort zone, because now you really mention in a way that it was amazing, but you know better than everybody how tough was to move away from your family, to be alone, like everything. You went out of your comfort zone, and this has happened when you do that.
Yeah. Sorry. And I think also, like, at the time, because I often reflect at how I was as a person, I was so fearless, you know, I was really like determined and focused, and I knew what I wanted and I was going to make it happen no matter what. But you're right. I really pushed myself out of my comfort zone. I mean, I didn't really know that many people in New York, but it was great being in school. I met a lot of great girls. And that internship, I took it because it was kind of the first one that I got. And I was like, okay, let's like try it out and see. So I was the girl that was taking the garments and they were driving me in like a black, really nice black car from the office to the celebrities' houses. And I had, you know, Petra Nemkova. She was one person I had to do, and I had to go to her door, take the dress. I had to, Ed Westwick was one, like all of these celebrities. And I was like, wow, this is so cool. And so I was doing this, but I didn't really, and I also was managing the backstage of the fashion show. I had this actress who was like my actress. I had to make sure that like where she sat was where she was supposed to be seated. So I was managing all of that, and it was really exciting. But part of me was like, I don't really see myself doing this in the long run. The reason for getting into fashion for me was I really wanted to be someone that was like creating some sort of product or something. And in fashion, if you're not the designer, you don't really do that. So I was still pursuing more conceptual type things. And my second internship was at Victoria's Secret doing concept design, which was amazing because I was the one that was helping the team create the internal idea for all of the company. And they would give me the credit card and I would have to go to La Perla and like I would wear Bergdorf Goodman, you know, with the card and be like, I want that, that, and that. And like, it was so cool.
Wow. I love that.
Yeah. And so after that,
but then
they loved me, but it was over and they offered me a job in beauty. And they said, we have this opening in the fragrance department and product development. And I was kind of like, what is that? I'd never heard of a job creating fragrances, creating products. And I think going back to that, pushing yourself out of your comfort zone and trying new things, I kind of just said yes, even though I didn't really know what it was. Because for me, it was like, I can try it once. And if I don't like it, I just change. Like, I'm not going to be stuck in anything. And so I did that. And that's where I began my career in beauty. I loved it so much. Like it was a job where you were the one creating the idea behind the perfume, the colors, the smells. I was working with all of the fragrance houses in New York, and it was fantastic. And then they didn't have job openings for me after my internship. And so then I went to L'Oreal. And I think at the time I've changed so much because at that time I really wanted to be like, for me, the dream was Devil Wears Prada, you know, that movie of like,
yes, of course,
fancy job, the cool clothes, the big, I envisioned myself to be like a VP of a really big company. That was my dream back then. For whatever reason, from society conditioning, from just like wanting to like prove myself to my mom, perhaps, I don't know. And so I pursued L'Oreal and I got that job. I got L'Oreal and it was global marketing, creating products within hair care. And it was intense. Like,
so what exactly you had to do there?
So part of the job was basically, as the marketing team, you look at the market, you study the numbers, you see the opportunities within the market. For example, I was creating the first oil-infused hair care line. And then
I love it. I actually use it today.
Cool. Yeah. I think I need to go get that product. So you basically present this idea to a huge team. Obviously, like I'm working underneath my director, so I'm the intern, but you are running around, you're presenting the idea. If they approve it, then part of your job is to actually create the product. So you create the design, the colors, what are you going to say about it, the words that you're going to use, how
storytelling,
all of that, all of the product was in our hands, and also the formula. So it was really cool. Like sometimes I would go down and they would test the formula in my hair, and I'd get like free blow dries. So that was cool. But it was a very competitive environment. L'Oreal is, I was sometimes working 70 hours a week.
Wow.
So it was intense. I did it for a year, and you have the choice to either apply for a job within the company or look somewhere else. And I just felt like that environment was like way too much for me. I was working all of the time. I wasn't feeling very good with myself. I was drinking so many coffees a day. I gained a lot of weight because you eat a lot. They order in food all the time. I wasn't working out anymore. So it was very different. I knew that there was another way to have an amazing job and be happy. So I looked outside. And then actually, I found my next job, which was at Calvin Klein, doing a very similar thing, but for fragrance. Again, going back to perfume. And the amazing synchronistic thing was the woman who was my director at L'Oreal, who was like my mentor, and we got very close. She ended up coming with me to Calvin Klein, but coincidentally, we had never spoken about it. Like I told her I got the job, and then she told me after that she was going to come.
I love that.
Yeah. So it was like meant to be. And that environment was really, really cool. It's for a company called Coty, who owns the licenses to different fragrances. And we had to, you know, CK1 from the 90s?
Of course.
CK1? Yeah. So we were creating CK2.
Wow.
Yeah. So
I love that. It was a pressure, even so, you know, CK1 was quite there. I mean, the whole promoting, I mean, storytelling, everything was really made
exactly
really impressive.
Exactly. Yeah. And so at the time, exactly, with all of the pressure, we created such an amazing product. And it was all at the beginning. It was really at the beginning of when everyone started to understand millennials. And we created the first gender-free fragrance. The bottle was clear, it was beautiful, and the whole concept of the perfume was about connection between two people. So the message was really beautiful. We studied millennials and the behavior. So it was an amazing, amazing project. At the end, it wasn't as successful as CK1, I believe, because it was launched too soon for the market. Like having a gender-free fragrance that you're showing like all of these new concepts to a market that doesn't quite understand it at the moment. So, but anyways, the project was amazing. The environment was great. And then during all of that, what that was happening in my personal life, I ended up breaking up with my boyfriend at the time, where I was living in Manhattan.
You look very happy when you say that. You should be a little bit
it was a beautiful, we ended the relationship in a really mutual way. We had grown apart. It was like very civil, like we both knew it was time to move on. Okay. No, but the reason I'm happy is because this move for me changed my life. I was living in Manhattan, Upper East Side. And then I moved to Brooklyn with my sister and two friends of mine from Miami. So it's 4 girls who moved to Brooklyn in Bushwick, where it was still kind of up and coming, a little bit rough. We didn't really have a lot of money, but we knew we wanted to live together. It was really hard to get an apartment. And moving to Brooklyn changed my life because it opened up my mind so much. We moved to this building where in the building was like a community. Everybody knew each other. Everyone said hi to each other. Sometimes we would even leave the doors open. Like the dog would be running in the hallway. A lot of the people that were living there were creative people who were not doing your normal corporate jobs. They were really living life in a different way. Some were vegan, like a lot of them were meditating, like spiritual, like totally different. So for me, I was like, oh my God, you know, this is amazing. And it was so new to me. And it just...
How old you were?
I was 23. I was 23.
Very young, still very young.
Yeah.
I mean, you are very young. With so much experience.
Yeah. And at that time, yeah, it was amazing. And I was still at my job at Calvin Klein, but then in that life, I kind of started to like live two different lives. And I've always had a passion for music. And then I was like, okay, I want to become a DJ. And so I started to learn to mix music. And there was this guy I was casually dating. We were in an open relationship, and he opened me up to a lot. I'm so grateful to have met him because he opened me up to so many. He would be like, yeah, I'm going to go meditate for half an hour. And I'd be like, what? Or he would like, he would push me to sing with him sometimes, and we'd make like just music to mess around. Like we were just constantly doing different things that I wasn't used to. So, and he opened me up to this. I had always been into yoga. I started doing yoga when I was 15, but really like when he would share the things he was doing and the way he was living life in this very free and open way, I was like, okay, like I know that I want that. Like I know
you were already meditating during that time, or just came in your life? Because with yoga, it was more like a workout.
No, I was really I was doing yoga as a workout, and just the fact that he would share with me that he would be meditating, it opened up the curiosity in me. It opened my mind to that. But I didn't really know how to meditate or do any of that type of stuff. However, the one thing that I did do at that time was, because of Parsons, you learn to make mood boards. And I started to make mood boards or vision boards for my life. And so that tool for me has been very powerful because I'm a very visual person. And when I'm telling you, almost everything I've created a board about has come true. And
I believe it. I'm there.
Crazy.
I believe
it.
I
went to Europe one of those summers living in Brooklyn, and I came back and I was like, I'm moving to Europe.
Like, but don't say too much. Let's go more, because let's keep our friends that they are listening a little bit in the mystery.
Okay. Yeah. No, of course.
So after Calvin Klein, you moved to Carolina Herrera, right? In the career.
Yeah. So after Calvin Klein, so that's when I started getting into music and kind of falling out of my Calvin Klein, being in love with the job and wanting to pursue. Like, I was just like, I know there's more to life than this. I just knew that there was more to life than having a job, and just feeling like the spark inside of me was just dying out. And I think at the time I didn't believe in myself to create a career in music, but I knew there was something more. And I started looking for jobs outside of the beauty industry, and I got nothing. Like, no one would answer me. No one would even write me back, and I didn't understand why. And I was like, maybe I'm still meant to be in the beauty industry. I don't know. Maybe the universe doesn't want me to leave yet. And I was looking.
I love it. How you were thinking of this age about that? It's unbelievable. Really, it's impressive.
I'm not sure. It was something very natural. It's really the intuition. It was really the intuition inside of me and my heart that was speaking to me, because I wasn't really reading any books. I wasn't really watching YouTube or anything like that. I was kind of just going with my gut and how I was feeling through things. I was just kind of moving through life that way. Almost like when you see a child from a very young age, when they're just so pure and they kind of just, they don't let the outside world affect how they are, what they're doing. They kind of just go with how they feel. I think I was moving through life like that.
I love that, and I think it's so important, and unfortunately the society destroy all this during time, but then we are going back to it, right?
I think so. I think it's about remembering. I'm constantly remembering those moments in my life to remind myself that is part of who I am. That way of thinking, that way of being is me. And so it's just like whenever I'm feeling conditioned or whenever I'm having negative thoughts or fears, I remember that fearless time and how I was in those moments. And so the day I decided like, okay, that's it. I'm done looking for a job. I'm just going to stay here and I'm going to see what happens. I swear to you, I look in my LinkedIn and I get in my inbox, it says product manager Barcelona. And backtracking.
The same day.
The same day. the same day. And I was just like, and my dream was to move to Europe.
Yeah.
My dream was to move to Europe. Like, I wanted to get there. I didn't know how, and I didn't put energy into getting there. I didn't want to go to school again. I didn't know how. And then that mail came in my inbox, and I was just like, what? And so that whole process, I started to do the whole interview process with Carolina. Originally, it was with Comme des Garçons, which was a really cool brand that was really exciting to me. And the company is called Plunge. They're based in Barcelona, and again, it's a company that owns the different licenses to different fragrances. And the interview process was very, 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 very long. Like, it was like almost like the universe was testing me along the way. Like, are you sure you want this? Are you sure you can make it? Are you sure? Like, you know, it was like constantly, and I kept going and I kept going and I kept going. And they would take so long to answer me sometimes. So you would have these moments of uncertainty and not knowing what to do. And like, I knew I wanted to leave my job, but I was still there. So it was pretty challenging. It was pretty challenging.
How long was taking the
The
whole
entire process took almost a year. From when I did my first interview to stepping foot in the office, it took a year. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, quite a long process.
Yeah, because then they offered me the Carolina Herrera job, and then the visa process began. And that was very long because I was the first American that they brought to Europe. So they were kind of navigating the process for the first time too. And there's so much paperwork and there's so many things that go into this. And originally they had told me 3 months. So I left my job because I was unhappy. I said, okay, guys, ciao. I left on very good terms. Like, it was great. But then I was without a job for 6 months because I thought it was only going to be 3. And
so what you did during these 6 months besides just the interview, how you had to survive?
I would say it was one of the biggest learnings for me because at the beginning I was resisting that time so much. I was feeling depressed, tired. I wasn't embracing that time. Like, for example, I was living with some friends and he had an entire DJ set up, and I was resisting that free time so much. I wasn't even inspired to do music, when prior to that, all I wanted was time to do music. So I always look back at that time as a learning to understand, like, embracing whatever's going on and finding the good in whatever is going on. Because my fear was I wasn't making money. I didn't know if I was going to get the job or not. I didn't know if my visa was going to get approved. And the only thing that saved me during that time was my favorite yoga studio. My favorite, very expensive. It's gorgeous. They have an energy exchange program where you can apply to work like 1 day a week, where you help them with whatever they need in the studio. And then you have access to all of their classes. And it's really hard to get this. Nobody gets this. And for some reason in the universe, I was blessed with getting the energy exchange program. So I was able to practice a lot of yoga. So it really helped me during that time. It was like, and then I went home to Miami and I kind of waited it out with my mom, and I ended up then getting accepted, and my visa was approved, and then it was like, okay, next phase of life. But I was still I think there was this, I was like in a limbo energy. Even though the yoga was there, I was still resisting. And I think that another thing that I learned was that I didn't put a lot of intention into how I wanted to create my new life in Barcelona. I fully went with this open mind and no intention. And it was great. I mean, I ended up finding an amazing apartment. My roommate was fine, but I think that if I look back and I can change anything, I would maybe create these vision boards, for example, to kind of just put more intention into how my life could have been when I got there. But I got there. So at the end of the day, it's always a learning no matter what.
And then you start again back to
and so
beauty, you know, basically. Perfume. Back to perfume.
Back to perfume. And so the thing for me was the brand that, like, I knew in a way is like the opportunity was amazing because it was in Europe, but the tiny part of me was like, still wanting to do something else, trying, wanting to do my own thing. But I took it anyways, again, because I thought like I can go there, and if I don't like it for whatever reason, I come back. And
yeah, you all the time have a you can choose any time. You can just say, okay, at least you tried it. This is the most important part.
Exactly.
And you could say, I tried it. It's not
Yeah.
for me, but I tried it. Otherwise, it will stay all the time there in your mind or in your heart, and it will be there, and you feel all the time, oh, why I didn't try it.
Exactly. And it was hard. I left behind my whole life of 8 years that I had built in New York, my friends, all of the things that I knew. I didn't know anybody in Barcelona. I knew one person that I'd hung out once from a friend of a friend, but
and you knew the language, right? Which I think is very important.
So actually,
are you speaking with your parents English or Spanish?
English.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So the language.
So I understood the language perfectly, but I was always, I don't know why, very shy to speak. And I speak English with my parents at home. We speak English, and I didn't. So I knew how to speak it, but I was still kind of shy. And I'm so happy I went because it made me. I mean, I had no choice, right? Like I had to push myself out of my comfort zone again. And be comfortable with making mistakes and like sounding silly if I don't say the right thing. So that was all very, very, very new. So yeah, but at least I understood it, which made a big difference. And so I moved to Barcelona, and I was this person that was really enjoying life in like the party way. I was partying very hard. I was drinking a lot of alcohol, doing drugs. I was living a very intense life from New York. There's so much going on, and I carried that with me into Barcelona because that's what I knew, and that's how I was, and that's how I knew to connect with people. And the first year in Barcelona was pretty tough for me because I was partying a lot and I was working a lot and I was tired. And I hit a point where at the end of the summer, I was just like, I don't feel good. I looked in the mirror. I didn't like what I saw in the mirror. I had gained a lot of weight. I just didn't, my face was not glowing. I didn't look healthy. I didn't feel happy. I felt empty. And I thought like, okay, I want to make a change in my life, and I want to feel true happiness. I want to understand what true happiness feels like. And so I began, my journey was to find a holistic nutritionist who worked with, instead of just giving you a diet, who worked with your emotions. And it was the first time and she did acupuncture and talked about stress and how are you feeling instead of like, what are you eating? So it was great. My journey through my transformation was through that way, through baby steps of just beginning to start to take care of myself and understand my emotions and how food and emotions were linked together. And so I started seeing her for a few months, and I started feeling better. It wasn't really about losing weight. It was more about how I felt. I didn't care. I made a commitment to myself that it didn't matter how long it was going to take me. For me, it was about the feeling. And I knew that losing weight and all of that would be a consequence of just taking care of myself. And so I began doing that. And through each, for example, through each time and through each step, if someone would invite me to a birthday or a party, I would be like, okay, so do I want to do that? Or do I want to wake up tomorrow fresh to go do yoga or like go for a hike? Or just wake up tomorrow and cook myself a meal prep. And so I started making those choices. And little by little, it started to change my path. And that began my journey into just meditation, taking care of myself, superfoods, understanding health even deeper, my body, getting more in connection with my body and not so much weight. And it's kind of like the thing that I said about full circle, like that passion of health was ignited again. And I would research and I would write and I would just, and I love cooking and creating recipes and going to the market and finding the food and finding new classes. And I also made one, this is very important because I made one commitment during this whole journey, which was, I was like, okay, I can either choose to focus on creating a social life here, or I can choose to focus on myself. And I made a commitment that I was going to focus on myself and I was going to put myself first.
Because you cannot love anybody else if you don't start with yourself, right?
Exactly. And so that became really clear to me. And I just started to say no to things. And I just started to, I would only go out and I would only socialize if it was on 100% yes. And I really wanted to be there. And I would maybe only go for a little while and then I would come back to my place. So I kind of went in my cocoon, or I would do healthy things with friends sometimes, like go to yoga or go for a tea or something like that. But making that commitment to myself was very important for me because in the past, I was always doing things that I felt were cool or what other people wanted me to do or what I felt, or like FOMO, you know, I feel like, oh, I'm going to be missing out on something.
I think we are all going through this direction. I think everybody understands you, hopefully, into this journey.
So through that, I started cooking a lot. Friends of mine were doing this small local market in Barcelona, and I used to make these healthy brownies that were, the beginning was from black beans, and I started making them and I would go and sell them at this market, and like people were blown away. Oh, like, what's the recipe? And through all of this, I started posting my recipes and what I was doing on Instagram, and people would write me messages to get the recipes for things, and I was emailing people the information or messaging them. And then I thought, okay, I'm just going to start a blog. Like, I'm going to start a blog because I feel like, number one, it's an amazing creative outlet for me. I also love to write and take pictures and do art direction and create recipes. So I was like, this is perfect. People, like, I took the signs from the universe. Like, people are asking for my recipes. I love to do this. So let's put them together and let's launch a blog. So I started my blog and I was focusing a lot of my time on my blog.
But you're still working for Carolina Herrera during that time, right?
I'm still working there. Yeah. Okay. So as I'm working there, I realized through this journey, and the more it kind of became to a point where the more clear you get and the more grounded you get, I think the more you reflect, I think the more questions start to pop up. And then I was kind of like, okay, so what am I doing with my life? Like, where am I going? And like, what do I actually want to bring to this world? And what am I doing positive for the world? And I felt like the companies that I had worked for and the company I had been, like Carolina Herrera and all these big companies, weren't really aligned with what I was envisioning for myself. I felt like the message of beauty wasn't really what I was doing for myself anymore. I got really into clean beauty and to loving myself for me, not because I am driving a fancy car or I have the Gucci bag that I feel that I'm beautiful. You know, I really started to like remove all of that from my conditioning, and the company didn't align with where I was going. So I felt like, okay, I want to do something positive for the world, but what's my purpose? Like, what am I good at? And that was really scary for me because it was so much newness at one time.
Unknown, yeah.
So much of the unknown, and I knew I wanted to change, but I didn't know how. And my blog gave me a lot of fulfillment, but I didn't know if it was possible to create a business or a life from that. And so what I did, instead of getting caught up in the how, I just kept putting energy towards the things that made me feel good. So I started to even take up ceramics, which I had done in high school. I just started to do the things that were very exciting. And like my creative momentum just started to go like this and like this and like this. And it started to grow and grow. And when you start doing that, you just start to raise your vibration and your energy. And then you start meeting cool people that keep inspiring you. And you start like going towards that direction. So I was still working there. And then I said, like, okay, I'm going to leave my job, but I also have to financially, be okay
Support
to leave
myself.
my job. I can't just leave from one day to the next. So I started to save money, which meant saying no to a lot of things. I stopped shopping. I started traveling a lot less. Like, I would only travel for work and then stay over the weekend to the place, but I was very mindful with my food. I stopped eating out. I wouldn't really go out. I started to really save money towards that. And I continued to do these things that would uplift me. And I had, during this, I had so many business ideas. And I see now that, for me, I'm still learning to surrender and to let go. And I was kind of like, getting so caught up in the fear of like not knowing what to do that I was just putting energy towards creating ideas that weren't really going anywhere. And I think it's really about just surrendering to the moment and having trust that it's all going to work out. And it's all going to fall into place. And when I started to feel into that energy, little by little, things started to change at work. So they had promoted me without me even wanting a promotion. They're like, happened. You got a promotion. And I'm like,
no, thank you.
But again, like, I told them, like, okay, universe, like, what do you want from me? Okay, I'll take it. And I embrace it. And so actually, I took that as like an opportunity to learn more. And it was the biggest project that they were working on at the time. And everyone was very excited about it. And you know what? It was so, like, there were so many times where my emotions would just, when you're not happy with something and you want to just kind of like say, forget it, I'm done, I'm out. And for me, now that I look back at that moment, that's your mind, that's your ego wanting to escape whatever is going on. And I'm so glad that I was able to go through those moments and like stick with it, because going through that, you learn when your heart knows is the right time to walk away versus escaping. Because if you escape something, those lessons are going to come right back until you learn them. And so I stayed there, and I ended up going to LA to shoot a huge commercial in Universal Studios. They flew me first class. And as I was journaling has been like a super powerful tool that I used.
So you start already journaling?
Oh yeah, from the beginning of when I told you my health journey, I was journaling almost like all the time.
And how you did it? Like, you did it early in the morning, or did you have like a specific?
Yeah, so I would wake up. I would wake up. I would meditate. And then I would journal how I feel. I would journal my intentions. And then at night, if I felt stressed or whatever it was, I would journal. I would journal how I feel. And just like that release of emotion is so hard. I still journal so much till this day. It's one of the tools that really works for me. And there's something about writing it in my book.
You cannot run away from yourself, I think, during that writing, because if you do something else, even listening podcast, for example, you are there, you're not with you. And I think just start to write. You cannot run. You just have to start. You just have to write. You have to accept yourself. So let's go. I already pictured that part when you were on the first class journaling. I already imagine all this part, and you were on the way to LA, which is a dream of probably most of the girls.
Exactly.
I think this is something so important, because it's something, it's a dream, but probably
when I was journaling, I realized, you know what, this is what I wanted one time in my life. And it's exactly what you just said. I was like, wow, this is a dream. I'm here. And this is my Devil's Wears Prada moment.
Yeah.
This is it. This is what I wanted. And I'm so happy I stayed through it to be able to experience this, because this is me closing the chapter in this part of my life. I did it all. I put all of myself into it. I worked through it, and I'm here. And so after that, it was great. I realized that through the journaling. We came back to Barcelona. So at this time, I had met Gregorio. I had already met.
Okay, let's say to everyone who is Gregorio.
Gregorio is my husband. Gregorio is my
Your love, yeah.
the love of my life.
I love you guys so much. You are really such a beautiful couple.
Oh, I'm just so grateful.
So how you met Gregorio? And before that, was he, I wanted to ask you that, was he on your visual board or
okay.
not? You have to tell me that.
He was actually.
Of
So
course.
funny thing is, remember I said I committed to myself. I was against relationships. I was completely against relationships. I didn't want to date. I didn't want to kiss.
But why? Because you thought that it's not, you don't have time for your connecting with yourself?
Yes, I felt like I didn't want any distractions. I didn't want any distractions. And I was creating a lot of visions, and I knew I wanted this divine love at some point in my life, but not at that moment. So I was creating vision boards with this love.
So what did you, if you can tell us and share with us, what did you, because there are many girls that they really are looking for their soulmate, and looking to you both, I can really say that you are really soulmates. How did you do this? Like for someone that is really looking for their soulmate.
So
how was working?
Yeah. So before him, I was in this toxic relationship with somebody that was not a boyfriend, it was a friend. And when I chose to end that for myself, this was the moment where instead of pointing the finger at him and what he did to me, I sat down and I owned responsibility for myself. And I took that as an all that heartbreak and that depression and sadness that I felt, I took as an opportunity to understand how I can be better and why I attracted that type of relationship in my life. And I realized so many things. I realized I wasn't respecting myself. I realized that I had a lot of work to do in self-worth and most of all, self-love. Like putting myself through that situation or in that type of relationship with somebody, it didn't work for me at the end of the day. And I was conforming to be a type of girl for him, to make him happy instead of being real with myself. I wasn't being real with myself. So I said, okay, I'm not going to do that again. I'm not going to experience that again. I'm going to truly honor myself as a woman. I'm not going to have sex with anybody unless there's a deep emotional connection. And I'm going to really, truly learn to love myself. I even started to sit in front of the mirror and look in my eyes and say, I love, which at the beginning is really, really strange if you've never done it before. And look in my eyes and say, I love you, and like feel the love for myself. So that was one practice that I started to do. And even just looking at my body and looking at my eyes and just being with myself. And so I worked through a lot of that. And working through that, I was like, I deserve the man of my dreams because I can be loved. And I deserve everything that I want in this world. Like, why not? Who says that I can't? You know?
Of course.
And so I was creating these vision boards while also doing a lot of this work. And during this time, I was like following a lot of, there's this amazing woman who writes a lot about inner child work and how it links to your relationships. So I started to explore that as well.
What's her name?
Her account is at Mindful MFT. Mindful MFT. Her name is Vienna Faron. Vienna Faron. And she's amazing because she talks about like love, relationships, just relationships with other people in general, and like how your patterns, what are your patterns based from inner child. And I was like, wow, that's so interesting. So I started to explore that as well. Like, what was it like for me growing up as a child? What's my relationship with my father? What's my relationship with my mother? And how has that played into my life today?
Oh, it's a lot of healing here, a lot of healing process that you had to do.
And creating these vision boards, another thing that I had done was instead of focusing on what he would look like, I was focusing on what are the things that we would do together? What would the relationship look like? Would we be cooking in the kitchen together? Would we be going on hikes? Like, what is the feeling I want to feel from this relationship, not anything superficial. So I was doing all of these things, and I had actually met Gregorio in 2015 in Burning Man. But we were never friends. We had just made the connection where we exchanged contacts. So we didn't speak for all of these years. And then in December of 2018, during the holidays, you would think you would go home to see your family, but I had just been home in Miami, and I decided to stay in Barcelona. And because I wanted to save money to leave my job. And then it's so funny because I was actually, I had thought, okay, I'm going to do a solo trip to Italy. And I had created a vision board about Italy, spending Christmas in Italy alone, flying alone. And then at the end, I looked at flights and like the whole thing was too expensive. And I decided, no, just stay in Barcelona and stay grounded and enjoy your time here. So I stayed there. And on December 26th, Gregorio, this guy I haven't spoken to in 3 years, writes me a message out of the blue on Facebook. Like, hey, how are you? Are you going to be in Barcelona? I'm coming in. I would love to see you. And I'm just like, what?
Who is he?
Who is like Gregorio Banzini? And the thing is, I remember him. Like, I remember saying goodbye to him that day at Burning Man because his presence was just so beautiful. Like, he was just the way, there was something about him that was very intriguing to me. And so when he wrote me, I was like, but again, I was kind of like in this, I'm committed to myself. I don't want to date. And none of that. So when we met and when we spoke on the phone, it was great because I just saw him as a friend, and he was on the same wavelength. Like, he had gone through a very similar journey that I had gone through, changing the life, eating healthy, like all of these changes were very aligned. So when we spoke, it was like so refreshing. And he, on the other side, he was looking for a wife. Like, he was like determined.
Yeah, exactly. He was looking for a wife, and he thought he met another girl before you, and he thought, that's my wife, right?
He did. Yeah.
And then he realized he's wrong.
It was a false alarm.
It was a false alarm, exactly. And then he met you.
And then he met me. Yeah. And so it was great because I had also stopped drinking alcohol, and so did he. So not drinking alcohol, not having sex in the game was amazing because, and also me just kind of being in the state of mind of like, okay, he's a friend. It just allowed me to truly be myself. Relax. And it allowed me to see him very clearly, like see him for him, not because we had sex and I was attached, or not because like we had a couple of drinks and then I created this illusion around who he was. Like, it was very real. It was very real. The first lunch we had, he like put all his cards on the table. He told me almost everything about himself, and I did the same. So I was like, okay, I've never experienced something like this. And he was living the life. He was already living this life that I knew was possible. So it was very inspiring for me. He had been traveling for 6 years. He had this studied a master's in architecture, a Fulbright scholarship, and just completely changed his life and jumped into something else. So everything combined was amazing. Like, as a person.
Important to have the same values. So important.
Exactly. And I think it's really important when you are manifesting, the love of your dreams, this divine love, is to really, for me, I feel it's important to have very similar values and the way you do life. And everything else started to fall into place after that. Then we kissed, and then after we kissed, I literally called my best friend. I was like, I think I'm in love, and I'm going to marry this guy. And she was
I love that.
She was like, I'm very confused, Andrea, because, it's been 1.5 years that you have not spoken. You've been against relationships, against dating, against all of these things. Like, how did you manifest this? And like all of those things that I did, I think it was the loving myself, the self-respect, the vision boards, the being focused on me. Like, he literally showed up on my doorstep. like that. You know, I had to do nothing. I was just there being me, and he just
Yeah, I mean, you did a lot before for
It's true.
yourself. I think it's
It's
the
true.
journey that you just have to focus on you, because most of us, we, in some cases, we, like you mentioned before, we focus of others, how they are feeling, what I should do to make them happy, what I should. At the end of the day, when you like go into you and you feel and you are honest with yourself, and sometimes this could be really tough exercise to be honest with yourself, and especially to accept the ego part. I think this is an interesting one. How is your ego doing? How you do you manage your ego, Andrea?
You know, I will say the work never ends, right? Like it's
Never,
always
yeah.
there, you know, and
Part
I
of us, right?
enjoy that. You can either see it as a scary thing and overwhelming, or you can enjoy that. And I truly enjoy the learning and the growing. And I did an amazing program called Hoffman, which is a
Yeah,
lot
of
to do.
course. I love Hoffman.
You did Hoffman?
I didn't. I just follow him, and we are doing the meditation, the breathing exercises. I want to go to Netherlands. We were planning to go
No,
in.
not Wim Hof. Hoffman. It's another process.
Hoffman.
Yeah,
Oh,
Hoffman. The
sorry.
Hoffman process. It's a week long
Okay.
where it's all based on inner child work. So it's intense.
Oh,
It's
inner
beautiful.
child.
It's beautiful. And so that program taught me to see all of my like it was as if all of my emotions are now on a table and I see them all. And I'm learning through that. I've been learning to embrace all of my emotions and and you understand my emotion from your ego. And I am okay now with experience. Like I am able now to I think it's more about taking a step back and observing when, like, even if in the moment I react and it's my ego, it's my mind, I always take some space from it. I don't just walk away from the situation and pretend like it never happened. You know, I go deeper within it. I try to understand, like, okay, what happened here? I'm just observing my behavior. I'm not saying it's good. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying, hey, what did I do in that moment? What did I say? Why did I say the things that I said? What did I feel? What happened there? And I think also when you're in a conscious relationship, you can't really run away from your ego or your mind. You know, it's like we're constantly putting the mirror in front of each other, and journaling helps me so much, and taking time for myself, like really spending time alone, which is something that in the past I hadn't done a lot of, and now I value so much because I'm a type of person that processes things a little bit slower. And so, and I'm with Gregorio almost every day, all of the time, even now more with quarantine, but even before quarantine, we were working together, traveling together, doing so. And I know I know it's really important to check in with myself and say, okay, I need today to myself. I need to just go and reflect and have time to process and be with me and see how I'm feeling. And that's how I kind of am able to check in with my ego. And also my morning routine is like super important.
What is your morning routine?
So it changes, but I dedicate at least 1 to 2 hours in the morning. I know it's now I have the time to do it. It's not always like that, but for now, that's what it is. And instead of having a very structured morning routine, I like to have a bucket of things that I like to do so that I don't feel, I like to have variety in my life, and I like to keep things exciting. But the non-negotiable for me is that I meditate 20 minutes in the morning first, 100%. And then after, it depends. I will journal. Sometimes I will read my own cards and reflect on that. And that will be another about like 20 minutes. I will put some time to read a book or read an article. And then I will do my exercise. So it's not in any specific order. The order is meditation first, and then everything else happens after. But the meditation for me is like, it centers me. It allows me to just like check in with myself first before even like plugging into the world. The other day I made the mistake of picking up my phone and reading messages, and then that's it. I kind of get stuck in the rabbit hole of the world. Yeah.
So easy.
And now I'm using this amazing app called Breathscape, where you put the phone on your belly and it makes sounds with your breath.
I love that. I should try it.
Create the music with your breath.
I love that. So now you are kind of a DJ for your own breathing exercise.
Oh, yeah, exactly. It's true. It's true. And then sometimes I hold it, and I love hearing the sounds. Yeah. Yeah.
So let's go a little bit back to not let our friends with the story in the middle. So basically, on a certain moment, you decided to quit corporate life after many years. You did.
I decided. Sorry.
How many years you were in corporate?
Almost 10 years.
10 years. So you were 10 years in corporate, and at the end, it's like a perfect life. And you just decide to
leave,
go away because you are not related. You didn't share the same values,
and I wasn't fulfilled. I think I wasn't.
You were not fulfilled.
Yeah, I wasn't fulfilled, and I just knew there was more to life. I knew that I wanted freedom. I really wanted to experience freedom and see the world. And leading up to leaving my job and leading up to that time of quitting was, again, I think understanding having patience with yourself through the process and understanding the escaping versus when knowing the time is right, because you also want to leave on good terms. You also want to leave in a way where both people, both the company and yourself feel good about the choice that you're making. But it was really scary for me because I knew I still didn't have, it's not like I was leaving into one concrete thing. I was really jumping into the unknown, and meeting Gregorio, like that's when he came into the picture, where he was it was as if I had done so much work to get to the end of the cliff. And I was like, okay, like, how am I going to do this? And he was like, come on, let's go, let's do it. And so like, he really inspired me to just like take the leap. And also, it's really scary for a lot of people to tell their families that they're making these types of choices.
Of course. Financial security, especially.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And
they probably don't understand.
Student debt, I have student debt from the US, like most American, most American people today. And my mom was not understanding, like, how is it, why do you want to leave this life, this beautiful life? You have a good job, you're in a beautiful country, you're traveling for work. Why? And I think that journey was, again, about being true to yourself. And I was able to explain to her that I wasn't happy. And that's the reason I wanted to make this change. Even though I didn't really know what I was going to do next, I knew that I wanted to feel happy and I wanted to feel free. So then finally, the day came where the projects were complete with what I was working on, and I was leaving after this big meeting that we presented this project we had done in LA, et cetera, et cetera. It had gone amazing. I'm in the cab, and my boss jumps in the cab with me. She doesn't even live near me. She just coincidentally gets in the cab with me. And then I was like, I felt very calm in myself. And at the same time, I also had this opportunity to work with Gregorio on the Breath of One in San Francisco a few months later. And he told me, like, I would love for you to come, and I'm going to go anyways, but it would require you to leave your job because we have to travel there. We have to go for 2 weeks. So it was like, okay, here's the opportunity from the universe. Everything just completed at work. This girl just got into your cab and she's not even going in the same direction as you. And I was like, okay, I think the time has come. And I was very calm. And I told her, like, hey, so, I'm not exactly happy anymore, and I've changed so much. And she's like, yes, I know. Everybody sees it. We can tell. And I was like, I don't see my future in a big company anymore. And I start telling her all of these things, and she's agreeing with me. And then I'm like, yeah, so, I have this amazing opportunity that's come up, and I'm like, so I think I'm going to change. And she was like, yeah, I agree. We can start to talk about that. And I was like, no, but it has to be soon because the opportunity is this date. And she's like, oh, so you're like giving me your 2 weeks. And I'm like, yeah. And so, you know, at the end of the day, everyone ended up being very happy for me. And everyone understood why I was leaving, why I was making the shift. And I left, and it was so, wow, it was amazing. It was amazing. And then my journey began into where I am now. So it was.
So where are you now, Andrea?
So, well, you know, actually after that was a year and a half of going even deeper into my self-development and my personal growth. And I'm very blessed and grateful that it's a privilege to be able to have this time of working. I was teaching the Breath of One with Gregorio. We were traveling the world, but really we were enjoying life, and we really focused on building the foundations of our relationship. And I was really working on myself. And I know it's a privilege to be able to have had that experience. And I'm so grateful for that. And so it was a year and a half of, it's like the work got even more intense after I left my job, because so many things started to come up for me, like this pattern of not feeling good enough. Like, can I actually do this? Like, who am I now? You know what I mean? And I was always surrounded by people who knew what they were doing already in life and had been in this new space of spirituality, of wellness, of doing positive for the world. And I was so new. So the experience was really humbling for me. And it really pushed me to grow further in like owning my power and owning my confidence and believing in myself. And also, again, surrendering and not forcing things to happen, like really letting life unfold and allowing the things to present themselves. And that's been the year and a half of that. And now I think where I am right now in this moment is like, I'm finally feeling like the things are falling into place. Like even leading up to quarantine, I was getting the same message through different people, different experiences. I did a retreat, which was about like, I'm not fully owning my power, and in its time. You know, I did a year and a half of kind of enjoying life, taking a break, and letting things fall into place. And about a month ago, it was the full moon in Scorpio. I love to work with the moon. I was meditating, and then I read my cards, and I had this realization of like, okay, I'm ready to like own responsibility of my life, like fully own who I am as a person, fully own my gifts, fully own my potential. I'm ready to put everything into action and flow with that action. And since then, like all of these different opportunities have started to show up where I'm working with amazing brands who are doing good things for the planet to create content and curating Instagram accounts, which is something that I love to do, coaching people with how to change their life and how to live a happy life in health, in their minds, in their relationships. So all of these opportunities are kind of now falling into my lap. There are like so many, and also some, you know, the opportunities show up, and I think it's a way of the universe to be like, are you actually ready for this? You know, it's a test to say like, here it is. Are you ready to commit? Or were those things that you were just saying, like, you know, something that you were saying at the time? So that's where I am now.
And I love I love the superpower blog. I think it's I love it, and I love the message as well. And I think what it was, I was once guided by you during a meditation, and it was so strong, the self-love, like you mentioned. Like, I think part of your journey, it's so much related to this self-love. And I felt that, and I received so many messages of so many people that they were part of the Omnes meditation, that you were guided, and they were like, "Oh my God, it was so powerful!" And you really have, honestly, you really have a magic there, and
thank you.
There are so many people that they need that.
Yeah, and that's one of the projects that definitely like I want to focus so much on. And this the superpowers blog is really about that. It's like a self-care destination where you have ways to take care of yourself through beauty, through food,
Love it.
through music. Like music for me, I'm not letting that go. It's still, I'm bringing that with me and I'm twisting it in a way of bringing this mindfulness to music. So creating these kind of meditation mixes where it's guided, and a lot of the self-love is really at the foundation of everything that I do. I believe so much in that. It's so important to honor ourselves, you know, because if you don't do that, you're going to be showing up in relationships not full, and you're going to feel depleted and you're going to feel tired. And like even in my relationship with Gregorio, we have a very clear understanding that like we say, I love you, but I love myself first. And
I love that.
We both have that, and we both know, you know, like if he wants to go to a dinner one day and I'm just like, for some reason, I'm not feeling good, I'm going to share that with him, and it's okay because I need to do what feels best for me. Yeah.
That's very important.
It is.
So how is your visual map now? How is your work with the visual map?
My vision boards.
Vision board. Are you still doing that? And
Yeah,
are you already working related to what you mentioned before?
I'm always doing that. I'm always doing it. And one of my best friends, actually, she's created this thing called the Vision Book, which is an evolution of the vision boards, which is a beautiful book. And it actually categorizes each section of the book to areas of your life. So, for example, it'll be travel, the love that I desire. It'll be the material things that I wish. It'll be career. So that's how kind of I like to break up the sections when I'm creating visions. And I'm creating visions now for that. And for me, what it looks like, I'm focusing on career. So I've really gone into doing photography. So I'm doing more photography. So I'll have a picture of a girl with a camera, for example. And I know that we're going to be living in Italy for the next year. So I'm like, oh, cool. Like, what are the places that I want to go to in Italy that I want to explore? So I get images of that. And what type of work environment, what does it look like where I'm going to be working? So I'll have a picture of a girl working from like a beautiful place from home, or whatever those things are. What is the evolution of the relationship of me and Gregorio? How do I want to feel moving forward? What type of woman do I want to be in my life and in my relationship? So I'm creating, actually literally this weekend, I have the weekend alone. So it's my self-love weekend. And I'm gonna be creating visions for the next few months.
So we can't wait for more. So we need to organize another episode then with what's next. This is one of my favorite questions, like last question for you, and it's: if you are going back in time to the little Andrea, what you will tell to yourself, taking into consideration the whole experience that you had? What will be one advice that you will give to your little Andrea, especially that you did so much inner child work?
Yeah.
What you will tell to
that she's good enough and she's perfect as she is.
I love it. Don't let me cry.
Yeah, that's a beautiful question. It's a very, thank you for that. It's a very beautiful reminder. And I think that, I would tell her that, and I would tell her you are perfect as you are, and you can be loved exactly how you are. Don't change. You can make anything happen.
Thank you so much, Andrea, for this amazing opportunity. And everyone can follow you on the Instagram. I will make sure to have all your links and the Superpower blog. And we can't wait for the next episode to keep up.
Thank you so much for having me.
No more.
It's such a pleasure.
Thank you, Andrea.
Thank you, Andrea. I think what you are doing is so beautiful. I wish you all the best and good luck with all your future projects. That was the holistic artist and wellness coach, Andrea Ochoa, For more inspiring interviews like Andrea's Hand It Over of the podcast, I have so many surprises coming soon. If you liked today's show, please share it with your friends, family, and community. I'm Crina Okumus, and you have been listening the podcast.